Hello, it's been a hot minute since I've done a video on this channel. So this is us finally getting around to the Soulstorm version for the Blood Ravens mega campaign that I started last year. Had the longest time trying to get this damn thing to work because the Soulstorm game kept on trying to kill itself after every stronghold battle. So basically with the Space Marines I would start the campaign, get through the first couple of battles, manage to do the actual stronghold battle, usually against the Orks, beat them, and then I would have to basically, that was it, the game crashed. So this entire video is just us scrapping through, fighting against the Orks, and then eventually it is into the stronghold battle. Now this is the first map, so most of the clips that you will see throughout this video are just me fighting Orks and destroying Orks. This one was the very first one, and you can see I didn't really have much thought into it. It was just get some Space Marines, put flamers on them, and go. There wasn't really a whole lot of brain power that went into it. But it did, obviously, we did win it in the end. This is obviously a video from a stream that was done. That was a while ago now, so the whole stream is actually on the channel as well. This was the next map that we fought on. As you can see, there's a lot more thought has actually went into this one. We've got a couple of squads, actually got some land speeders because they're really good for taking on Orks. Now the usual, we've fought Orks in every single campaign. You do fight Orks in every single campaign, and even with the announcement of Dawn of War 4, we're going to be fighting against Orks. Orks are just everywhere. They're kind of the best bad guys in the whole Warhammer 40k setting because they live to fight and they fight to live. It's quite a very simple concept, and it's one that Warhammer and GW has used almost to extinction. Now obviously there's a lot more races that have been added in the years since, Tyranids being one of them, but Dawn of War, don't think they could quite get that into the game. They done it with Dawn of War 2, but that was also on a much smaller scale, so they were able to bring Tyranids into that one quite successfully, but again it was on small scale, it wasn't quite on the swarms. Unification and Ultimate Apocalypse have brought that into the Dawn of War 1 style, but from the actual game, not so much. I mean, it's strange, you've got two Horde factions in this game with the Orks and the Imperial Guard, but they couldn't get Tyranids in yet. But, hey-ho, that's entirely GW's thing. Well, actually that was Relic, sorry. So this is obviously the definitive edition, which means that some of the character icons have actually changed from what they were originally. The Land Raider I think is still the same, the Terminators is not, the Space Marine squad is not. As you can see, Land Raider just quite happily chomping over the bodies of fallen Orks and taking on some Storm Boys. And shimmying. Don't know how tanks can shimmy in this game, but they can. So yeah, basically the whole first set of clips that you will see is basically just us fighting against the Orks, taking down some of their strongholds and taking over provinces. Now a lot of these maps that you will see, they are actually multiplayer maps or skirmish maps, so you can actually play these battles on multiplayer, which you will see quite a lot of if you are ever interested in actually seeing multiplayer battles. There is a creator called Mr. Landshark. He's actually very good for doing commentaries over the multiplayer battles. I've actually enjoyed quite a number of his videos. I will leave a link to his channel in the description if you are indeed interested. because I've enjoyed quite a lot of them as well. And obviously with the definitive edition, there's been a lot more interest in this game again, not just from those of us who have just played this game for so long because we just love the game. So there's obviously been renewed interest because they have brought the definitive edition out. Obviously this was actually the only one we didn't have to fight orcs, and that was because we had the Tau decided that they wanted to come in and try to take me on, and then were kind enough to just stand in front of my heavy bolter turrets. And then we decided I had had enough of them, so I just ran up. The thing with the Tau is they are physically weaker than obviously superhumans. They are actually weaker than a normal human. So when you've got a superhuman with fire, it doesn't really bode well for them, unfortunately. And I mean, just watch as his health just fucking rocketed down. And I mean, you've got, what's that, 24. I've got 24 Space Marines, 6 of which have got flamers. It doesn't really bode well. And then there you go, only one of my Space Marines is currently being shot at by plasma rifles, and the rest of them can just fire almost indiscriminately into that. It's aye. Obviously I'm not sitting here playing it on the hardest difficulty, don't see the point in that. So this is us starting the campaign. I must have just put in that one. So this is the Ork Stronghold. So from here on out until the end we are fighting orcs, and it is on one map. It's chaos, but it's fun. Stronghold battles are actually good fun. A lot of these big WA banners, the original from the Dark Crusade, they used to be really good, where they would cause them to rebel and they would fight against each other, and it was quite a fun wee mechanic. This one, it just destroys their morale. However, in this one their morale was destroyed for a nanosecond and then they had it back, so that was fun. But I mean, we had dreadnoughts, so big walking tanks. What more could you ask for? I mean, it's, don't get me wrong, the means with which to create a dreadnought is not fun for the driver, because the driver is dead or as close to dead. So it's not fun being a dreadnought driver, shall we say. On the flip side, the Killacan that's in this game is kinda misinterpreted, because a Killacan is a grot. So the little guys that you see running about that build things for the orcs that are Gretchens, they're a bit bigger than grots, but Killacans is usually Gretchen or grots within a walker body. They're usually quite small though, they're maybe about the size of a Terminator, whereas whereas Death Dreads are the ones with orcs inside them, and they are obviously about equal in size to a dreadnought. The thing with it being is, whilst a dreadnought keeps an almost dead Space Marine suspended and almost alive so that they can continue to fight, a Killacan or a Death Dread is literally built around the Orc, Grot or Gretchen, and basically means that they don't get out ever again, so they will die within that metal box. So here we've got me deciding I'm going to do an Iron Rain, which is just dropping 2 dreadnoughts right in the middle of the base because I'm a lovely guy. I'm actually quite sure that that's the thing that they say Boreal is known for in this, is Iron Rain, which is just basically drop pod everything. There's another 2 about to drop in as well, because there's not a whole lot you can do when you've got 6 dreadnoughts kicking about in your base. especially with Unification and Apocalypse, where you can get ironclad dreadnoughts, which are close combat and only close combat. I mean, you can keep a dreadnought as just close combat if you so wish. There's nothing against it, but ironclad, you don't get a choice about putting ranged on them. I mean, you can see how much they minced that up. And I mean, it's a tank, so infantry is not going to do a whole lot unless they've got missile launchers. So I mean, yeah, it's a bit cheaty. And then you've got the March of the Ancients there. 6 dreadnoughts walking in, and then there's 10 knobs going, we've got this, looked at that and went, no, no. Even with their power clause, which would definitely cause issues. It would certainly cause issues for dreadnoughts within the tabletop game. That's kind of feel like a tank killer. Same with like power fists. There's a lot of things in this game where they're made to be more than what they are in the tabletop. Same vice versa with the Space Marine 2 game, which I'm sure some of you will most definitely have seen and will have played. They have taken what is really, it is meant to be one of the most dangerous things in early versions of like the first edition Tyranids and that, which was the Hive Tyrant. Now, those are not such large models and therefore are quite easily targeted and not really all that imposing. However, Space Marine 2 has taken a Hive Tyrant and made it into something rather fucking terrifying, and actually given it the gravitas that it deserves. So there are things in this game that make no sense against the tabletop, because tabletop wise there would be no competition. And then on the flip side, I mean, here we have a whole bunch of mega knobs. Now, they would be terrifying on the tabletop, but as long as you can shoot them before they get to you, then it's not much of an issue. Same with the Leman Russ. Leman Russ, if you have a good shooting phase, you can destroy it quite easily. Whereas in this game, it's made quite a nuisance because we don't really have a whole lot of anti-vehicle weaponry. And in that one, my guy basically decides he wants to walk into firepower, which he shouldn't have done. And here we have the base, which caused possibly the most amount of damage, but that's because we have got tank busters which can hide, and because we don't have many cloak breaking technology, you can see 5 rockets firing off in the top right there. Because we don't have much in the way of cloaking technology, I have to get servo skulls, which is a fucking nuisance. I mean, you can see I've not even got dreadnoughts because they keep actually destroying them. You can see the amount of missiles, because obviously when WA banners are fully upgraded, they have got a missile launcher. When the listening posts are fully upgraded, they have got a missile launcher. And there's a Squiggoth in the background just to make things worse. A whole horde of orcs behind it, so aye, it's a bit much. Then we've got Servo Skull finally comes in, joins the squad, and we can see the tank busters, so then they get hurt. But aye, Squiggoth is the Ork Land Raider, if you will. But it also doubles like a Land Raider as a transport, so it can actually transport troops. And it's quite funny because everything Orky starts off as some form of squig, and obviously, well, sorry, not the orcs themselves, but you can get squigs that are just a meal for orcs, and then you can get up to squiggoths, and there's all in between. There's mega squigs, bomber squigs, all kind of squigs. Orky biology does not make sense, which in itself is quite funny, because they are, as much as a lot of my videos talk about fungi and fungus and all of that, that is literally the means by which orcs are around, how they exist, how they keep going, because they are a fungus. When an orc is alive, when it dies, all of these things in between, they're literally constantly exuding spores, which then goes into the ground, which then means that it'll grow and it will turn into, whether it be Gretchen, orcs, grots, anything in between. And that is how orcs are so difficult to get rid of, because their means of reproduction isn't as most races. It's asexually. There is no need for any, was it mitosis? So the orcs can just stay almost forever, because as soon as you eradicate orcs, unless you melt where they've been, you can't get rid of them, because they will just constantly come back through the means of spores. Which is why many imperial worlds have been forced to basically burn forests, burn everything, in some cases glass entire planets, because it's the only way to be sure that orcs can't come back. But then you've made a planet that's completely and utterly unviable for the Imperium. So it's a catch-22. Quite a lot of Imperial planets will have an orc population on it, hopefully just feral orcs, which can be dealt with regular culling to keep the population under control. But obviously a lot of the big orc wars then come around, and that just causes nothing but issues, because they then become technologically available, because feral orcs are just spears, kind of like your Warhammer fantasy orcs is what feral orcs end up being. But once a little bit of know-how comes into their psyche, into their group, then they become scary, then they become a problem. And also they're on Imperial worlds, so all they have to do is loot some Imperial stuff, believe that it works enough, and it will eventually start working. Orky psyche is just hilarious. Now obviously it does bring credence to the meme that obviously if they believe it hard enough, then it'll come true. A lot of people think it's funny, and that if the orcs believed that the Emperor stood up again, then he would. Doesn't quite work like that. The whole thing is that orcs put things together, like their guns, their vehicles, things like that, and these things shouldn't work, but they do. So thank you very much for sitting with me through this one. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I do hope that you join me for the next one. Thank you very much, and I shall see you again.